Tonight on Greater Boston, our ballot question debate series continues with question 4, which asks voters to decide whether to repeal a recently passed law allowing undocumented immigrants to get driver's licenses. Both sides will make their cases ahead. Then I'm joined by Nancy Frates, the mother of Pete Frates, who inspired the famous Ice Bucket challenge before his death in 2019. That challenge that hit a new milestone this week with FDA approval of an ALS treatment drug that it helped fund. Question 4 on the ballot in Massachusetts this November will decide whether undocumented immigrants are permitted to obtain driver's licenses in the state. The state legislature has already passed a law that would allow the expanded access starting in July of next year. They overrode a veto from Governor Baker to do it. But now the voters get to weigh in. According to the Secretary of State's website, quote, a yes vote would keep in place the law, which would allow Massachusetts residents who cannot provide proof of lawful presence in the U.S. to obtain a driver's license or permit if they meet the other requirements for doing so. A no vote would repeal this law. On the yes side of the issue, I'm joined by State Senator Brendan Creighton from the group Safer Roads Massachusetts. Senator, it's good to see you.
Thanks so much for having us.
And on the no side, Jay McMahon, who's representing the group Fair and Secure Massachusetts, is also the Republican nominee for State Attorney General. Jay, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good to be here, Jay.
Since your side are the movers, they're the ones who want to repeal, why should this law be repealed?
Well, Jim, the people on our side want to repeal it for a number of reasons.
Like what?
Well, let's talk about constitutionality first. It deals with foreign nationals here in the country illegally. We all know that. We all admit it. That's what the law is targeting. And yet the Constitution of the United States gives dealing with foreign governments and foreign nationals exclusive prerogative to the president.
Doesn't have anything to do with their immigration status.
Oh,
though.
but it absolutely does when you're talking about people that are here undocumented. It has everything to do with that. And the Registry of Motor Vehicles, who are going to be in charge of this, has no authority under any federal constitution or federal law to grant legitimacy to people who are otherwise in the country illegally.
Senator, you want to respond to those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to debate the law that's been passed and that makes our roads safer by requiring that everybody follow the same set of rules. This isn't an immigration issue. This has nothing to do with immigration. It's about making our roads safer, making sure that everybody has to pass a road test, a vision test, get insurance, and to, get a license in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, Jay, I'm sure you know that 16 or 17 states already have these laws. Of the problems that you and your allies are predicting, can you describe to me where they've arisen anywhere in those 16 or 17 states? Has there been a problem anywhere?
Absolutely.
What are they?
I will explain it. There's 16 states and then the District of Columbia. So that gives you the 17. And every single state, fatalities within 2 years, the ones who have kept records, in every single state, fatalities have gone up between 20 and 30%. I've got a list of each state by state, but that's the range, 20 to 30%.
Hit and run numbers have gone down in a number of those states.
If the hit and runs have gone down, that's good. But the fatalities, the ones where people don't walk away from the accident, those have gone up.
Senator, is that true?
I mean, I'd say across the country, unfortunately, we've seen some really serious accidents over the past few years during the pandemic, a lot more fatal accidents. That's not exclusive to states that have adopted similar legislation. So I'd love to see the stats there, but it has been across the country. It's a tragedy. But in these states, as you mentioned, we've seen less hit and runs, 80% less in New Mexico, 60% less in Utah. I mean, that's a serious decrease in accidents. Because
the person who gets involved in an accident who's undocumented is not worried about running away from the cops, obviously.
Absolutely. And they have insurance and they'll stick around. And
one of the other arguments Jay's side has made that I've read and heard is this becomes a magnet, I think is the term they use, for undocumented people. Is that a concern for you? Is it true?
Again, it's 16 other states, 17 if you count Rhode Island that recently passed, but 16 that have implemented in D.C. And there are many states that are much closer to the border. There are red and blue states. Certainly this has not led to, there's no evidence, I guess, to point to being a magnet. If people want to come to Massachusetts, it's because there's great opportunities here for education, for workforce, for raising a family, but it has nothing to do with a bill that we've just passed into law.
Jay, one of the most powerful supporters, I think even people on the senator's side would agree, is Maureen Maloney, who's obviously his son, Matthew Denise, was killed by an undocumented driver who was drunk. So I totally understand her commitment to this issue. What I don't understand is how the law, had it been effective, how would it have changed an outcome here? What the absence of the law didn't cause that horror to happen. So why is that even relevant to this discussion?
In other words, you're saying it would have happened anyway.
I don't,
it's basically what you're
I'm
saying.
saying I don't know if it would have happened anyway. I just know that the absence of law didn't prevent it from happening. So why is that horrible tragedy relevant to this ballot question?
Well, you know, I think I tend to agree that the death, however it occurred, would have occurred in any event. But what her issue was, and what the senator was saying about somehow these people are going to have insurance, there's nothing in the law that requires someone with a license to have insurance. You need insurance to register a vehicle, but there's nothing that mandates them having insurance to get a license.
Why do you think, by the way, that the police chiefs organization supports this thing if it's such a horrible idea?
Okay, so from what I see, the chiefs have not come out and said they endorse this law. What they said is they're looking for some kind of identification for these people, and that's what they're supporting.
Wait, is that so?
That's not so. I mean, we met with the chiefs. They helped us throughout this process, the major city chiefs. In fact, they helped us, make compromise in the bill to make it, suit their needs, to make sure that their officers, as well as the general public, are as safe as possible. They worked with us on the documents that are required. So you do need documents to earn this license. So I think law enforcement, from the sheriffs to the DAs to the chiefs of police, I'm going to stand with them, and I believe our constituents will as well. And on the issue of public safety.
It's not the topic tonight. You want to be the Attorney General of the Commonwealth.
That's right.
Don't you think that police chiefs and sheriffs and DAs, if they're taking a lead on this like they're taking on the senator's side, are ones whose voices should be listened to?
Well, I don't think that, see, that's why I disagree with the premise of the question, that they are endorsing this.
Well, I've actually read it,
but they have endorsed it.
No, I haven't. What they have endorsed is a concept of identification. But let's talk about it. What is the identification that this license is going to give them? Well, they have to have certain documentation, which Charlie Baker vetoed this bill. And the reason he vetoed it is he says the Registry of Motor Vehicles does not have the expertise, or indeed I would say doesn't have the competence to cover all the things it needs to do. In other words, the 3 different types of documentations they need from some foreign government to prove who they are, doesn't work.
So speaking of the governor, on our radio show, Marjorie Egan and I have talked to the governor about this law and now the ballot question for months and months. He's concerned. He's a pretty smart character, I think even his critics would agree. Says he's really worried about the voting issue, that this automatic voter thing that comes with registration, despite what proponents of the law, like you say, is going to be a problem. The people are going to end up getting registered and voting who should not be. How do you respond to him?
So I respect the governor. He's a constituent of mine, but on this issue, we disagree. It's just simply not true. It's been debunked over and over again. The Secretary of State has said as much. When you automatically register to vote, that system is not, it's a misnomer. You're not automatically registered. You have to have proven that you are a citizen. So we already have DACA recipients, TPS recipients, green card holders, work in college school visa program. They can apply for a license to earn it, yet they're not able to vote because they're not citizens. So we already have this system in place that works. How would this be any different?
I didn't know that till a couple of days ago. I wish I had known that when we were talking to the governor, because I find that pretty compelling. If they're able to handle green card holders, let me add to your list, 16 and 17-year-olds who can't vote either, but they can drive. I know from my family, and I'm guessing others do too. If they can handle those, why can't they handle this?
Oh, there's a ton of things. You're asking, why can't the Registry of Motor Vehicles handle something? I mean, we have heard that the history of the Registry of Motor Vehicles being a functioning, explicit office, when they can't even suspend licenses from people when they're supposed to. In other words,
how many green card holders or 16-year-olds who got a license from the registry have voted illegally?
I can't tell you.
Do you know of any?
I don't know of any.
Don't you think
personally.
we would know if there were any?
I would hope that we would, but therein is the problem, because they automatically register people to vote. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people, when they've gone in to reinstate their licenses, wind up being, again, on the voter rolls.
Do they automatically register to vote?
They do not. there's a system in place, again, or we would have all these folks registered to vote. It doesn't make sense. And also, just to be clear, you do not need a driver's license to register to vote in Massachusetts. That should end the argument right there. It's a misnomer. This is about safer roads.
It's
again,
the other way around,
safer
though,
roads endorsed by law enforcement. I drive my kids to school every day, 7 and 3. I want everyone else on that road to have passed a driver's test and to have done it the right way.
Put aside your
Jim,
position.
let me speak to that.
Oh, of course,
because when you apply for a license from Massachusetts, you automatically get enrolled. There's a little
that's
box.
False.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, Senator. Let me finish.
I'll let you finish.
There's a box there. You got to check to opt out.
So then, can we go back to my question then? If that's the senator says you're wrong, but if you were right, for argument's sake, how many green card holders who are not entitled to vote have voted? How many 16-year-olds who are not entitled to vote have voted?
Well,
you can't name any.
Because I don't have that information.
There's a system that checks whether or not they are citizens after that little box you talk about. So they're already going through this. Mass Health does the same thing. No one has refuted that. I mean, this is a long process. We're going on close to 20 years. Nobody has refuted that, but it's a very convenient thing for the opposition to say to, again, further divide us at the ballot box, which is unfortunate.
But the law specifically says the registry cannot ask them what country they're from.
This has nothing to do with that. The system that checks afterwards has nothing to do with that. It's just,
you know, put aside your position representing the committee. You're driving down the road. You're hit by someone driving another car, and they're an undocumented person. Would you prefer they have a license and have gone through testing, or you're just driving on the road, no accident? The person next to you is an undocumented person. Would you prefer they went through testing, vision test, road test, etc., or just drive? Because most people who drive, who are undocumented, drive to live, to take their kid to a doctor, as you know, to go to work or that sort of thing. Which would you prefer? As a human, not as a representative.
Jim, if they bang into me, I prefer they have $1 million insurance policy.
Okay, they don't bang into you. How about driving next to you? Would you prefer they have gone through testing? Or are you okay with it? They're not going to stop driving, Jay.
Jim, I prefer that they enter this country through a legitimate point of entry, that they're vetted by the federal government like the law says. Then when they get here, if they're here as residents, they're entitled to a license. But if their first thing coming into this country is an illegal entry, I'm suspicious of everything that they may want to do. Jim, the law is put in place for a reason. People in law enforcement have to enforce the law. It's to protect all of us. It's called public safety.
This is the law. This is the law that you're trying to. I'm sorry.
No,
you're No, go ahead.
No, I apologize. So, I mean, we're not here. Again, the federal immigration system is broken. It's been broken through most of my lifetime. It's a tragedy. I get it.
So is it
but
the registry motor vehicles.
But in Massachusetts, we can control our roads and how safe they are. So why wouldn't we want everyone to follow the same set of rules, to pass the same test? It just doesn't make any sense. And for folks out there, you know, I think looking towards the people on the ground level, looking towards law enforcement, they're asking us to do this. They support this. They know that when they pull someone over, they want to know who is behind that wheel. Just as I want to know as I'm driving down the street that everyone here is driving on the roads after having passed a test and gotten insurance.
Okay.
When Charlie Baker vetoed this bill, he vetoed it for a reason. And one of the things he said was by granting licenses to undocumented aliens, it wouldn't be long till the whole pool is diluted and we don't really know whether the license is truly the person holding it, that's the
But let me ask you again, Jay, one of the first questions I asked you, unlike the people who were here last night about this change in dental insurance, where we'd be the first law in the country, we'd be the 18th jurisdiction with this. Where has that problem arisen? I mean, if it turns out, I'm assuming, if those problems had arisen, then people would be repelled by this law, but the numbers suggest otherwise. Where are the problems?
Jim, it depends on what numbers you're talking about. I told you that the 16 states that have this already have had an increase in the number of fatalities.
Because of this? Because of this?
Well, within 2 years of each state within 2 years has had an increase in fatalities. Now,
I only have a minute. Give me your best 30 seconds, and then you're going to do it. Best 30 seconds why people should vote to repeal this law, Jay.
Okay, the reason why they should vote to repeal it is because it's a dangerous law. Where it's been tried in 16 other jurisdictions, the fatalities have gone up 20 to 30%. It's a law that circumvents the federal authorities who have the primary jurisdiction in vetting these
Gotta
people
hold you there.
before they come into
30
the country.
seconds for you, Senator.
I completely disagree, and I would like to see your facts laid out because those statistics don't add up. They've never been presented before. So just to sum it up, again, it's safer roads by requiring everybody to follow the same rules on the roads. So you're passing a driver's test, you're showing proof of identification, documentation, you're getting insurance, you're paying into the system, and you're again, earning a driver's license. It makes for safer roads for everyone. That's why I'm voting yes on 4 for safer roads.
Senator, it's good to see you. Thank you much for
Thank you,
being
Jim.
here.
Appreciate
Jay,
it.
same to you. Really
Jim,
appreciate
good to
your
be
time.
here with you.
Thank you so much. The Senator,
Thank
Jay
you.
McMahon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent.
So again, a yes vote would keep in place the law, a no vote would repeal it. When Andrew Frates joined us back in 2016 to talk about the famous Ice Bucket Challenge that his brother Pete inspired, you remember, when everyone from Kim Kardashian to Victoria Beckham to Governor Charlie Baker poured ice water over their heads to raise money to research ALS, he said he hoped it would make a difference.
We're so excited and so grateful for everyone who dumped and donated money to hopefully, fund breakthroughs and lead us somewhere down to a cure.
Pete Frates died in 2019 following a years-long battle with ALS, but he and his family's promotion of the Ice Bucket Challenge helped raise more than $200 million, much of it going toward research on the terminal neurological condition. And now the FDA has approved a new treatment for ALS based on a trial the challenge funded, exactly as Pete's mother Nancy hoped for when she joined us in 2015.
What the Ice Bucket Challenge has done is we're able to go in now to these labs and say to these researchers, stay at the bench, keep doing the work that you educated yourself to do. The families are going to raise the money.
And did they ever? Nancy Frates joins me now, along with Dr. Sabrina Paganoni, co-director of the MGH Neurological Clinical Research Institute and the principal investigator in the trial that led to the approval of the new drug called Relivrio. Doctor, it's good to meet you, and Nancy, as always, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Do you remember saying words like that about 10,000 times?
Sure, I lived them.
I know you. And so how did you find out about the approval of the drug?
I got a text. I had actually just left an Ice Bucket Challenge at Endicott College, which they do annually, and 15 minutes after getting in my car, I got the text that it was approved.
Can you describe the feeling in your body and your head when you got the text?
It was joy. It was hope. It was mixed emotions, too. I would have done anything to have gotten that text while Pete was still with us.
You know, just so people are clear, while the two guys whose company developed this are now the heads of the company, when they were funded by the money you and your family helped raise, they were undergraduate students at Brown. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And did you know them? Had you ever met them at the time when the money was going to them, or no?
Well, they did reach out to us.
Oh, they did?
In 2015.
When they were in college?
When they got the grant. So the ALS Association granted them $2.2 million, which was the catalyst for them to be able to bring it to what we have today.
And you didn't go home and say, 2 college kids, come on, really?
I said 2 Brown College
Oh,
kids.
excuse me.
This is going to happen.
Thank you. So, doctor, explain exactly what the drug will do for ALS patients.
Absolutely. This is such an exciting time for people with ALS. The drug can help prolong functional independence, meaning that people will be able to retain functions for longer. Things that we do every day that we take for granted, like walking or speaking. Now, the drug is not a cure. I want to be very clear. The drug cannot completely stop the disease, and it cannot reverse the disease. However, it's a fantastic step forward.
And so just so I'm clear, it slows the decline and will extend the life of someone suffering from ALS, correct?
That's correct.
Is this appropriate for all ALS patients?
Absolutely. The drug was approved for everyone with ALS. Obviously, it would be important to start it, as early as possible and give access to as many people as possible, but it's approved for everyone. And so we are starting to prescribe it, and this is great news, really a change.
As I mentioned in the introduction, Doctor, you were the leader of the trial, and originally the FDA Advisory Committee voted no. They met again, they voted yes. And I've read a couple of things. One, because their confidence level grew. I guess there were additional presentations, you'll tell me. And also, there was a mountain of voices from families where there was unmet need. What do you think drove that reversal in terms of the FDA advisory committee?
Well, in my opinion, it's the data. The data has always been very strong. We continue to do additional analyses, and those are the ones that were presented more recently at the second advisory committee meeting. Absolutely, there has been a lot of support from the entire ALS community, both ALS patients, families, but also ALS physicians, researchers will continue to look at the data and help us really do, again, more investigations, more analysis of the data to really clarify the effects of the drug. So I think the data is what really counts.
Nancy, you have strong feelings about the I don't know if it's criticism. Well, criticism. It's a small trial, and so we really shouldn't move ahead with this. What do you say to those people?
I say that if it was your family member and there was potential or hope that they could delay going on a ventilator, losing their voice, or even extending life 10 months, you're going to tell me no. And as you know, Dr. Paganoni said, the data is there. It just needs, it was the sample size. And what I say is that if it would work on your loved one, wouldn't you want it to be approved?
What do you say when I read comments on stories, which I know is a diseased behavior, and it's not a good one, but I do read them. I read a lot of comments saying it's only 10 months. What do you say to them?
I would say that Pete Frates never got to talk to his daughter because he, 5 months after Lucy was born, he had to go on a ventilator and lost his voice. Well, if his progression had slowed down, he might have been able to tell her that he loved her. He might have seen her open another Christmas present on Christmas morning and seen his brother get engaged. His brother, who gave up 7 years of his life to take care of him, got engaged within that period of time. Don't tell me 10 months doesn't matter. It matters a lot.
You know, doctor, I read that the annual cost of the drug is $158,000, and I also read comments from the two men, formerly undergraduates at Brown, who run the company, talking about subsidies and that sort of thing. I don't understand all the details. Are you comfortable saying that anybody who needs this drug will be able to access it regardless of its pretty steep price?
Well, we operate in a complex healthcare system. So what I can tell you is that there's been a lot of thought and really dedication that's been put into this from multiple people, multiple stakeholders, and obviously the company has put a lot of thought into ways to support patients. So we're operating in a complex system. I sure hope that there will be access for everyone.
Are you confident? You were nodding. Are you confident, Nancy, that this will be available to people who need it, regardless of their ability to pay?
I am, because in 2017, we had another drug come to market, Radicava, and which had a steep price. I believe it was even more than this.
I think it was, yeah.
And I think that there's an unmet need here. Look, 2012, we were told no treatment, no cure when my son was diagnosed. Now, that's the difference, is that there's very limited treatments for ALS patients. So let's get it approved and let's get the insurance companies to pick that up.
What have you heard from families who have somebody they love who has ALS?
I heard from a very good friend of mine, unfortunately, who has been diagnosed in the last couple of years. And the first thing she wrote to me was, I already started the paperwork.
Oh, boy.
And she had all hearts and prayer signs next to it. That's all I needed.
How soon will this drug be available, doctor?
So the company has announced that the drug will be available within 4 to 6 weeks. So we're talking of mid-November on average. So again, I completely agree with what was said earlier. We're starting the paperwork and hopefully we'll be all set by that time.
What else is in the works? I mean, obviously we should celebrate what is, but I know this is not the end point. You mentioned there's not a cure. What are next steps that you and people like you have dedicated your life to this? What's next?
This is a great question. I do want people with ALS to know that there is a lot of hope because there is a lot of research. And in fact, a lot of that research was started thanks to the Ice Bucket Challenge that you mentioned earlier. And then from there, we continue to grow. So right now, we're testing more drugs than ever. And we have innovative trial designs that allow us to test these drugs faster. So I really think that we're going to see a number of news, hopefully many positive news over the next few months.
Do you allow yourself to think about whether or not a cure is on that list at some point, not just treatment, but a cure?
I think that's possible based on the science. Now, at this point, we are continuing to learn about the genetics of ALS, about the mechanisms of ALS, and we are continuing to build on top of what we already had. So there's going to be a time, I'm sure, not in the distant future, where we're going to be able to change ALS and make it a chronic, livable disease.
One more thing about progress. Can you describe for us where we are today as compared to where we were when the Ice Bucket Challenge happened?
Well, the Ice Bucket Challenge has been transformative. I think that people really need to understand that. And I think that since then, there's been so much progress. The curve is really impressive. And so what Nancy said is very right. You know, when in 2012 or 2014, there were very limited options, and now we have so many more.
You know, Nancy, you probably encountered this, but every time I ever heard anybody speak about your son, they talked as if they knew him. And most people got to know him from afar, but they didn't know him. Tell us for a minute, what kind of person was this young man, son of yours?
So everything you've heard about him is true, and what I can say is that he was all that and more. He was a born servant leader. You know, you hear all the talk about him being captain of the team. Those were his words when he was diagnosed. This is my new team. That's how he thought. It was always about team. It was always about community. It was always about serving others. And I did get a question in the last couple of days, did he ever feel sorry for himself? And I said, when you're a servant leader, it's not about you. It's about those that are going to follow and what you can do to help others. That was Pete in a nutshell. And, you know, the Healy Center, all the doctors there, those are my heroes right there. Those people are the ones that are really bringing this to be.
Do you ever feel sorry for yourself?
Well, as a mother, yes. Of course I feel sorry. I miss him every day. I wish I could have seen the future. But as a mother, I just choose to stay in my pride for this young man who took this challenge on, had the vision to see a trajectory change in this disease, and it happened. And today, to see this drug come to market and to help my friend who's now suffering from ALS, it's a building block, right? This is just another block in building up to what the doctor said is going to be eventually a cure.
You and your son and your family have helped change the world, Nancy Frates, so congratulations.
Brody, nice to see you.
Doctor, it's a pleasure to meet you, and congratulations on your work.
Thank you.
Thank you both. That's it for tonight. Please come back tomorrow. Former top federal wage and hour regulator under Obama, David Weil, joins me on the Senate's refusal to put him back in the job. Quite a story. Plus, unionization efforts across the country, the current labor market, and more. And if you were hoping for a debate on ballot question 3, which would change Massachusetts' alcohol licensing rules in a few modest ways, sorry to say we won't be able to bring that to you. Despite extensive searching for anyone to represent the no side, we weren't able to find a single person. So here are the basics. A yes vote on question 3 would double the number of liquor licenses a chain retailer can have from 9 now to 18 by 2031, but only 7 of those could be so-called all-encompassing licenses, meaning beer, wine, and hard liquor. It would ban self-checkout for alcohol. It would allow out-of-state licenses to be used to buy alcohol, and it would change how fines are calculated for any retailer that breaks the law. A no vote keeps things just as they are. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget Ukraine.
Rivers of Life.